Okay, here we are on our fifth card. I'm saying this is the fifth card. Of course, you can do them in any order you want to. You don't have to go in order that I have them. You can, when you get the PDFs, you can either print them out or just keep them on your computer. I'm going to try to just put them in the email. And that way, if you want to keep them, you can save them to your own computer. But yeah, you don't have to do it in any certain order. Okay, so this is the card that we're going to be doing this time. And this is the most time consuming because we did the embossing, okay? And instead of stamping the love, instead of cutting out the love, we stamped it with Versamark and used embossing powder, and the same as with You More. So you're going to be embossing 3 different things. So it's going to take a little bit longer than the last one, okay? And then I didn't do anything extraordinary on the inside. I just stamped a little flower here. But again, you could, and maybe I'll put it in the kits. You could just put another piece of the mint macaron down here, like this, and then put your white piece like on top of it, so that again you have those layers there, and you could just stamp the flower on this side. So I'll be sending all the kits out tomorrow, so if I have time, I should have time tonight to go ahead and cut some more paper, so I'll do that just so we can do this. And also, I have a surprise. I have a sixth card that we're going to be doing. You were only supposed to get 5, but I did this card and I loved it so much that I just wanted to share it with you. So you're going to get 6 card kits in the mail. Okay, so for this card here, you're going to need the Whisper White for the card base. And again, that's going to be 5.5 by 8.5. Score it in half at 4 1/4. Use your bone folder. Crease it down really good. Okay, and then just set that aside for a moment. Next, you're going to take this other piece of white, and this is 3 3/4 by 5. When you put your layers on, you usually do a 1/4 of an inch different on each layer. Some people do an 1/8 of an inch, but I like to do the 1/4 inch because it's easier to get the measurements perfect. Okay, so you're going to have a piece of, again, 3 3/4 by 5. And that's going to go right here on this layer, which is 4 inches by 5 1/4. Okay, so it's a 1/4 inch larger. Okay, and this is the piece that we're going to be embossing. It's actually white, but what I've done, Stampin' Up! Has these new sponges now. Now this is not one of theirs. This is one I've had for a long time, but it's just like this. The only difference is it has a white handle instead of a black handle. But they are so easy for blending the inks. I know if you remember when you used, a lot of times you use a sponge, like a pizza slice of the sponge. I got a little bit of glue right there. And you don't get an even coverage if you're not careful. And if you have the sponge daubers and you try to do it, a lot of times you end up with a circle because you don't go off the edge with the ink and get most of it off before you start putting on your paper. So that's why I like the brushes. They're so much easier. It takes a little bit longer, but they're easier. Okay, and then this is going to be, again, we're going to use the same label set that we did last time, the Tasteful Labels. And we're going to use this one again right there in the middle. I use that one more than any other one. Okay, so you're going to use that. And because I sponged this, I wanted to sponge just a little bit around the edge here because I don't have a layer behind it. And I just wanted it to show up a little bit more. So I sponged the mint macaron ink just around there. And then we've added 3 rhinestones. You always want to have an odd number, and you always want to have them kind of in a triangle shape because supposedly that's more pleasing to your eye. I can't tell if it is or isn't because if you had 4 rhinestones on there, I think it would be just the same to me. But anyway, you're supposed to use an odd number, and it's supposed to be more pleasing to the eye. draw your eye towards it. And again, I'm just going to stamp the flower on the inside, but you'll be doing it on your other piece of Whisper White. Now, that won't show up in the video, I don't think, because I'm not doing it on this card, but it will be in the directions, and you will get the paper for the extra piece there. Okay, then you have another small piece right here, and this is for the You More. We're going to stamp on that and emboss it, and then the same thing with the Love. We're going to stamp the Love right there and emboss it. Now, this is just the shadow part is where it's cut out. And I don't remember if I think I showed you that die. Hold on one second here. Okay, so when you go, we're going to stamp the Love with the Versamark, pour the embossing powder over it, and then when you get to cut it out, you're going to use this outline die and just layer it like that, right over top of it, and cut it out. Now, if you cut it out with the other one, the other Love die, then it's going to cut out the letters again, and you're going to have L-O-V-E. But you don't want them separated, so you're not going to cut it out with this die. You're going to use this die that almost looks like a kitty cat when you turn it sideways. Okay, so again, you're just going to lay it over the letters that you've embossed, run it through your stamp and emboss machine. Cut and emboss machine, that's right. Not the Big Shot anymore. And then you're just going to cut that out, okay? And this, the Love You More, once you get that stamped, you're also going to take this die, and it fits in there almost perfectly. You have a little bit of border on the top and the bottom, so and it will fit. So you're just going to cut that out with this die here. That's the middle one. You got three. You got the large, and you got the medium and the small. So you're going to be using the middle one there. Okay. Now, I'll put this over here. Okay, so let's get started. Let me get all this stuff out of the way here. All right, so move the card up there. Now, I've gone ahead, I've cut my white base 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4, and then I've used my bone folder and pressed it down really well. And then I went ahead and I adhered the piece of mint macaron. It's 4 inches by 5 1/4. Just go ahead and adhere that to the front of the card. Now, if you look, I do have a bow on here, and it does go around. You can barely see it there, but it does go around. But it's going to be glued to the back of this piece. So you can go ahead and put this piece on. That's what you have to make sure you look at is where is the ribbon. Okay, the ribbon's going to go around this piece, so it does not matter if you glue this one on first or not. Okay. All right, so I've already embossed this, but just as a reminder, you're going to want to take your Whisper White paper, and I like to do my fingertips first, just to make sure there's no oil on it where the embossing powder will stick. And then I take my embossing buddy. If you don't have an embossing buddy, you can actually just use a used dryer sheet, or you can just like put some flour, or not flour, cornstarch in a little bag and sew it up on both ends, and there you go. So, but you want to take this, do your fingertips first, hold the paper, and you want to use your embossing buddy all the way. And what this does is it removes the static from the paper, okay? If you don't do that, when you pour your embossing powder on, a lot of it will be sticking in between these flowers, and you won't be able to get it off. So if you have the embossing, if you do the embossing buddy, you get like the oils and stuff off of it. The embossing powder will only stick where the Versamark is. Okay? So what I did is I took my Versamark, inked it up, my stamp up, the small flower, that's what I used, inked it up, and I had I used my stamping pad, but I put a piece of scrap paper under it because I wanted to go off the sides. I don't know if you can see that, but I wanted to go, I can see it better here. I wanted to go off the side so it looked like one continuous piece of paper that I cut instead of just, you know, a panel. So I want to use the pad because the stamp has this like solid part in there. And a lot of times when you have stamps with the solid part, the ink doesn't get to the paper as well unless you can push down, and it's got something that will kind of smash the ink down a little better than a hard surface. If you have just a hard surface, a lot of times when you stamp, the ink will stay on part of the stamp and not get down into your paper really well. So I want to use my stamping pad underneath of it, and I want to put a scrap piece of paper over it so it doesn't get on my pad. I've had some people not do that, and they've stamped with stays on ink and just stamped all over my pad like it was nothing. Okay, so, all right, so you're going to ink the stamp up with the Versamark, and you're going to stamp. And what I do is I like to do half at a time. Okay, so I stamp, I start at the top, turn it a little bit, more, turn it a little bit off the edge, another one, and another one. I just go straight across. That way I can get them up close together, as you know, or as far apart as I want. So I do half of it first. I go ahead and I shake my embossing powder over half of it. Go ahead and just kind of like, you know, flick it, get all of it off. So you don't have any stamp down here yet, so you can hold it, you know, wherever you want to. Okay, so after you get the powder on, the embossing powder, and you shake it off, you're going to go ahead and take your heat tool and turn it on. You're not going to do anything for like 2 or 3 minutes. You're just going to let it heat up. If you don't, when you start doing your flowers, it's not going to be hot enough to melt the embossing powder, and you're going to end up having to do it so long that it's going to burn the paper. And you'll have all these brown spots all over it. So make sure you turn your heat tool on first. Let it set for a couple minutes on so it heats up really well. And then you're just going to take it and like take it on one part of one flower, hold it about, I don't know, inch away from it. And then you'll see the powder start melting. And instead of just a plain, dull white look, you'll see a shiny look. I hope you can see that. You'll see a shiny look where the embossing powder has melted. Now, like I said, if you do it too much, because that's why I said you want to get it hot first, you want to put it just on one piece, watch it melt, and as soon as you see that melt, you want to start moving your heat tool slowly around until you get to each flower, okay? And then you can kind of move it around in the light, and you can see, when you see it's shiny, you'll see that it's already cooked. Now, if you hold it on too long, not only will your paper get brown, but you can burn the embossing powder. You can melt it all away into your paper, and you won't have this nice, shiny, embossed look. Okay, so heat the tool up first. Hold it on one of the flowers about 1 inch away. As soon as you start seeing it melt, and you want to put your cardstock in the light so that you can see it. And you might have to move it around, you know, a couple times to get it where you want, but you want to see it melt. And as soon as it starts melting, you're going to move your heat tool slowly around, okay, and go to each flower. And then when you're finished, look at it. If you see pieces that are not, parts that are not shiny, just go ahead with your heat tool and heat it back up. Okay, when you're finished with that, I just like, you know, shake it for a second, get it cooled off a little bit because it is hot. It is hot. Then you bring it back. And since you've only done half of it, okay, you're going to hold on to the half that you've done. Again, you're going to take your embossing buddy because you might have got grease on here from your hands or oil from holding. So I'm going to do my fingers again. I'm going to hold my paper down, and then I'm going to use my embossing buddy again on this other part of my paper. Okay, and you don't have to worry if it sticks on there. A lot of times I'll just pat it and then I'll just rub it across. You don't have to worry about that. It's going to come off. Okay, so after you do that, then you're going to, of course, you're going to take your stamp again. You're going to take your Versamark and you're going to finish stamping. Now, you did this top half, so you want to start right below it and go down. If you start on the bottom, and go up, you might have a big empty space here because you won't have any room to put the flowers in. So you want to put the parts you've already done at the top, and then you want to start and go down with your stamping. Don't forget to turn it different ways so that it looks a lot like real paper. Okay, like I said, you can put them as close together. I actually started a little bit close up here. I didn't really want it that close. I wanted it more like this, but I got this one a little bit close. So, but that's okay. It doesn't take much away from the card. Okay, so all right, so we've done that now. Put our stamp away, cleaned it off. We put our Versamark away. We put our powder, the extra powder, back into our container. Okay, and then we're gonna emboss it, shake it, cool it off a little bit. And then we're going to keep this paper under here, but we're going to move the stamping pad because we don't need that right now. So what we're going to do next is you're going to take your mint macaron ink. Okay, open it up. You're going to take, now like I said, you can use a sponge. When you get the sponges, they're round. You cut it into little pieces like a pizza. You would cut a pizza. You put the ink on it, but you've got to make sure that you rub most of it off before you start doing it onto your card. Okay, that's so you don't get uneven marks all over it. Now, with the brush, what you're going to do, and this one doesn't really work as well as the Stampin' Up! Ones, but I mean, it will work. Okay, you want to go ahead and you want to do the same thing. You want to get some of it off, and then you're going to start off the paper, and you're just going to move around on the edges. Okay? You want to do all the edges first, and then you want to do the inside. Okay, so get a little bit more ink, rub some of it off so it's not too dark. Start off the side, and just roll it in here. Okay, you can roll it, you can go this way, you can go the other way. It doesn't really matter. Now, I'm not going to do this whole thing. I'm just showing you. Rub a little bit of it off. Take your brush. Come on it again. Okay. Go up and down. Go sideways. You want the outside edge to be a little darker than the inside. Doesn't matter how much of the outside edge. If you want to do just a tiny bit darker and more lighter, that's fine. If you want to do a little bit more darker and then not as much here in the middle, and you can just do that as well. So that's up to you. It just depends on how much ink you want on it. Okay. All right, now that's all I'm going to do. But you see how smooth that looks. And like, I got this darker spot here and this lighter spot. All I have to do is take this in here and just put a little bit more on there to even it out, and do the same thing. You don't want to have it a solid look. I mean, you do want to have some definition in there. You can see I got darker over here, and I got lighter in here. I got this one's a little bit dark over there. This one's a little darker, and that one I got lighter in here. It doesn't really matter. I mean, whatever you like, you do. Okay. All right. So after you're finished with that, and you got the whole thing done, you're going to take a soft cloth or a tissue, and you're going to lightly rub over the top of it. And what that does is it takes where you put the ink over the flowers, the embossing part, it takes that ink off and makes them so that they really shine and doesn't have any ink over top of it. Okay, so again, after you've put all your ink on, you're going to take a tissue or a soft rag. Now you want it to be soft, and you're just going to go ahead and you're just going to wipe over this lightly, and that's going to get all the ink off the white. If you don't do that, and you go ahead and put the rest of the card together, it's going to smear every time you touch it because the ink is still going to be wet on the embossing. It's not going to dry. So when you touch it, you're going to end up smearing it someplace else. So that's why you want to make sure that you go over it lightly, and that way you get all the ink off the embossing part. Okay? All right, so after that's done, you're going to go ahead and you're going to wrap your ribbon. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing because I didn't want it, like I said, I didn't want to sit here and put all the ink on and take up a lot of time. So what you're going to do next is you're going to take the ribbon, okay, just like we did before. You're going to put it down like this, leave about, you know, 1/2 inch on each side, turn it over, put the seal on there, and press the ribbon down on both sides like this. You want it kind of right in the middle, maybe just a little bit above the middle, okay, maybe just about like that, okay. All right, so you're going to put that on, and then you're going to go ahead and glue it to the card front. You can use, like I said, you can use dimensionals if you want. If you want it raised a little bit, you can use dimensionals. You can use the multi-purpose liquid glue with the green glue, or you can use the seal. You know, either one you want, you can use one. Okay, so that's going to be that part. All right, now I've already cut it out. Okay. All right, so I've already cut out my label here. Got some smudges on it from sitting there. I don't know why. You know what? I found it. It's kind of funny. A lot of times when you stamp and you got your ink pad, it kind of squirts out a little bit every once in a while, and it gets on your paper. I mean, I have not used any ink around this paper at all. It's been sitting up here. The only ink that I've used is been on when I was just now showing you how to do it. So I don't know, it just splatters up there, I guess, around. I don't know. But anyway, that's that. All right, so I've already cut the label out. Now, I'm going to take my sponge, and I'm going to do like before. I'm going to open up my ink pad. I'm going to get a little ink on here, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to lay make sure you got the right side up where the little grooves are here in the design. You're going to put your sponge kind of perpendicular to it, and you're just going to rub it down the sides. Okay? You want to just rub it all the way around. You can come in further if you push your sponge over a little bit. You can make a deeper line. But I did not want that. I just wanted a thin line around there. Now you can use the sponge, or you can use a sponge dauber. I don't know, you might be able to use this, but I don't know. I don't think you'd have very much good control over that. So I would use a sponge dauber or a piece of sponge, or you don't even have to do it at all. But I just like the way it looks. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, does scrapbooking a lot. And she helped me one time with some cards, and I had to have her sponge it. And she just loved that so much. She says, Mom, just save your sponging for me. I just want to do your sponging, okay? I don't want to make cards. I don't want to stamp. I just want to do your sponging. So I said, okay, whatever. All right, so now I've gone ahead and I've stamped my love again in the Versamark ink. Before, I used my embossing buddy first, okay? Then I stamped the love with the Versamark ink, poured the powder over it, made sure it was covered, flicked it off on the back again. Now, you don't cut it out until after you emboss it, because if you cut it out first, you're not going to have anything to hold on to, and you're going to get your fingers in the embossing. So you want to do the embossing first on both pieces. You can go ahead and do this at the same time, the more. Emboss it first and then cut it out, because like I said, you won't have any place to hold on to if you go ahead and cut it out first. So that's really important. You want to make sure that you emboss it all first and then cut it out. Okay. Same with this. You want to make sure you emboss it first and then cut it out. I've given you big enough pieces so that you'll have plenty of room to hold on to when you do your embossing. Okay. Now I put my love up because it's solid on the back. I just went ahead and I put it up with dimensionals, and I just glued it right on there with the dimensionals. And then I put the U More with dimensionals as well. I don't know if you can see that, but I just put that right underneath of it like that. Okay. And then I added the 3 rhinestone jewels there. Okay, very easy. So embossing buddy first, then Versamark, then the embossing powder. Heat up the tool first for a couple minutes, and then start the embossing. Okay, after you get done, make sure you just shake it, you know, a little bit so that you don't burn your fingers. And you're ready to sponge the color on. Okay, all right, so now for the inside, like I said, I only just stamped this flower, the smaller flower. I stamped that in the mint macaron, but I'm going to send you a piece this is 4 by 5 1/4, so I'm going to send you a piece of that. I'm going to send you a piece of white that is 3 3/4 by 5 for the inside. So then you'll just stamp your flower down here on the corner. Okay, that'll look a lot more finished that way. Sometimes if you do, you know, it depends on how thick your paper is. Now I'm using the thick Whisper White here, but sometimes if you use a thinner paper for your card base and you stamp just on the inside, it will show through on the back. Okay, so I love the thick Whisper White, but now that they have the new, what they call it, they're going to just call it basic white. Supposedly, from what I've heard from demonstrators, is it's a lot better than the Whisper White. They like it a lot better. So, anyway, I'll give you the extra paper so that you can do that. Then the last thing you're going to do again is you're going to tie your bow. And you can do it, I mean, people do it on their fingers. I cannot do that. I cannot do that at all. So I'm going to show you one more time how to do that on the comb. Okay. So you're going to take the comb or whatever you use. You can use, I mean, there are bow makers that people have made with just a square piece of wood and pegs sticking up out of it that you can use. But hey, this is cheaper. I got it from the Dollar Tree. Okay, so I'm just going to hold my ribbon there at the end again. I want it to be kind of big, so I'm going to come over here to the 1/8. And like I said, I've counted mine and marked it, so I don't have to count it every single time. I know that's 8. I'm going to take it, and I leave it on the roll until I get ready to cut it, just because it's easier and I make sure I get the right amount. Okay, so you're going to go around the comb again in the back. You're going to come up between the first 2. You're going to hold this one with the tail, and then you're just going to bring it around here, and you're going to cut about the same distance off that's hanging out here. Okay, it doesn't have to be even because, like I said, you're going to trim it when you get finished with it. Where do my scissors go now? There they are. Okay, when I cut, I like to cut it at a diagonal just because it's easier to get down inside the prongs this way. All right, so I know that's 8, so I got to go over half, so I got to count 4. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I want to go down again. I don't know if my fingers are in the way where you can see or not. I want to go down here at the bottom. Okay, and the way I remember that is B comes before T in the alphabet. So I know I'm going to do the B, the bottom, first, and then I'm going to do the T. Okay, so you're still holding on to this with your thumb because you want to keep the ribbon taut. You're going to come back up in the same one, the 4th one again. Okay, lay your comb down and make sure your ribbon's straight. Pull it snug. Hold the comb down with your fingers here. And then you're just going to tie a knot and pull it out the side. Now, there's no reason to tie 2 of them because the ribbon is not going to come apart when you put a glued on the back of it. It's not going to come loose. Okay, so you're just going to slide it off the prongs. Okay, and again, you're just going to put the glue on the back. And this time the bow is, I don't know why, I shouldn't even have put this underneath because you can't really even see it, but I did. The glue is going to go, the bow is going to go on the side again, and then you're going to trim the edges. And then you're done. Okay. Which one do you like best so far? I think that my favorite, I don't know why, but I just really like that Sahara sand one. It's just, I don't know why, it's just so elegant to me. I really like it. And I think that could be used, well, if you did emboss the top with those roses, it would work for a mail card as well. I guess this one would too, but I don't know. It's got flowers on it, so I probably wouldn't send it to a guy. Okay, so that's it. And then I'm going to be back with the surprise card, and that will be it for today. Okay? Hang on, I'll be right back.